what you think of the recent talks underway and why you think Iran has not retaliated yet.
Well, with respect to the talks, the administration saying making progress, they've been saying making progress on these talks for about 4 or 5 months now. They never seem to get to the finish line. I think there are still enormous gaps between the Israeli position and the Hamas position. I'm not saying a miracle couldn't happen. It happens in the Middle East from time to time, but I wouldn't look for it. I do think Iran has hesitated to retaliate for the killing of Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas leader, in Tehran. They need to strike back, I think, very strongly. They've been humiliated by what Israel did, killing this terrorist leader in their capital, in a secure compound, with a bomb planted 2 months before. It shows nobody in Iran is safe from Israel, including the supreme leader. On the other hand, the Iranian leaders are also intimidated by Bibi Netanyahu and Israel. I think this time they are worried that the U.S. will not be able to pressure Israel into a limited response, as Israel did after the 320 drone and missile assault on Israel from Iran's territory some months ago. Really, Iran is more intimidated by Israel than it is by the Biden administration. So they've got a difficult decision, how strong a response to make to restore their own very damaged credibility versus their fear of what Israel would then do to them.
Well, in April, when those 300 missiles were flying over, it was because of the U.S. defense that Israel was able to fend them off. And Ambassador, given your level of intel regarding Iran, how can they retaliate but also try to not strike this cycle of endless retaliations back and forth?
Well, let's come back to the April attack. Wall Street Journal and CBS reported that of the 120 ballistic missiles that Iran fired at Israel, 60 never made it within range to be shot down. They either blew up on the launch pad or crashed before they got close enough, which speaks to the quality of Iran's ballistic missile force. But if there had been 120 rather than 60 ballistic missiles in the skies over Israel, I don't think it would have been such a good performance. The cycle that's at work here is caused by Iran. Look, this is not a war between Palestinians or Gazans and Israel. This is a war by Iran against Israel, what they themselves call the Ring of Fire strategy. And as long as the current regime in Tehran is in power, seeking nuclear weapons, arming, equipping, training, financing, giving intelligence to multiple terrorist groups in the region, threatening not only Israel but the Gulf Arab states too, there's going to be conflict. And what's driving Israel and the Gulf Arabs closer together is they all see Iran as the main strategic threat, and they think the United States is feckless.
As these ceasefire talks continue, do you agree with the idea that Iran could potentially use those, if they were to ink a deal, use that as an off-ramp to not retaliate?
Well, they may want to use it as an off-ramp, but I think it would be a big blow to Iran's prestige. They're not exactly stepping up here to take responsibility for what happened to Hamas after the October 7 attack. And they've also not been able yet to persuade Hezbollah to use its unbelievably large arsenal of missiles against Israel. So, as I say, I think it's the fear of further Israeli retaliation that has the Iranians intimidated.
With that retaliation coming from Israel, if Iran does do some sort of large attack, Ambassador Bolton, what is the ability of the U.S. and its allies to rein in Netanyahu's response?
Well, I'm sure that the Biden administration will want to rein them in. They've been afraid of this issue and the war in Ukraine dominating the news in the United States because it shows a world in chaos due to 3.5 years of American weakness. Really, what they would like to see is this go away until after Election Day, even though Biden's no longer running himself. Frankly, I think the lesson to be learned is that the prospect of a really forceful Israeli response, if Israel comes back at them, shows that a strong posture toward these rogue states is the way to go. And Iran has a lot to fear from Israel. It should have a lot to fear from the United States, but at the moment it doesn't.
And Ambassador, a lot of times when we're talking about this retaliation, even if Iran would like to do that without provoking a response, the question always comes into the fore: what is the likelihood that mistakes are made? Mistakes are made that escalate things further. And that there's been this conversation that it won't just be Iran this time, but Hezbollah as well. Are the odds for mistakes higher by involving proxy forces in the retaliation to the retaliation to the retaliation?
Well, look, I think you have to look at what the strategic picture is. There is a regional war in the Middle East now of Iran against Israel on 5 fronts. Hezbollah from Lebanon, Hamas in the Gaza Strip, the Houthis that have closed the Suez Canal, Red Sea passage, one of the most important commercial shipping channels in the world, closed effectively since October. The Shia militia in Iraq and Syria that have been attacking American positions, and Iran itself. And the question is, how do they dial up one or the other? Israel does fear Hezbollah's arsenal, which in public estimates, this is an extraordinary number, but public estimates are that Hezbollah has between 120 and 150,000 missiles, which would obviously be enough to overwhelm Israel's air defenses, and leads to the question, if they really think it's about to happen, might not Israel strike first? It's complicated. It's not mistakes. It's the fact that the leadership in Tehran is determined to destroy the little Satan. That's what's at work here.
Ambassador Bolton, yesterday we heard from former President Donald Trump, who you worked for. He said, I'm not looking to be bad to Iran. We're going to be friendly, I hope, with Iran. Maybe, but maybe not. But we're going to be friendly, I hope. We're going to be friendly. Do you know what Trump 2.0's policy towards Iran potentially will look like?
Look, he has no idea what it will look like. People who look at what happened in the first term and believe that it'll be the same in the second term, I think are mistaken. It's always possible. But remember, Trump almost met with Iran's then Foreign Minister Javad Zarif at the Biarritz G7 summit in August of 2019. Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, had Zarif in a villa in Biarritz, almost persuaded Trump to do it. The attraction to Donald Trump of making a deal with anybody is hard to quantify. It really goes off the charts, and it could be the same way in a second term. And that's why I think there's a certain amount of pressure on the Israelis, if they're going to do something, to do it now rather than to wait for the uncertainty of the American election.